Hello, thanks for tuning in. I'm Jim Roger.
And I'm Peggy Kane,
And
we're the Cutting Edge.
Very good, Peggy. You know, we have another interesting show for our viewers tonight, right out of our Ancient Mysteries department. And tonight we have in our studio a real-life, modern-day Indiana Jones-type character, none other than Dr. Robert Ghostwolf. Dr. Ghostwolf has worked for many, many years with the indigenous Indians of North America. In fact, as a result, they have embraced him as a ceremonial leader and a prophet to them. Dr. Ghostwolf holds 2 PhDs, one in Christian philosophy with the emphasis on North American studies, the other in biblical archaeology. Dr. Ghostwolf is responsible for the discovery of a sphinx in Colorado, the time capsules of Buffalo Eddie. Dr. Ghostwolf has also discovered various ancient metal plates and tablets in North America dating back 7,000 to 8,000 years, written, get this folks, in Middle Eastern languages here in North America. So also Dr. Ghostwolf has authored a number of books by the name of The Last Cry, Winds of Change, Through the Eye of the Shaman, Days of Destiny, Changing the Tides of Fear, Following Ancient Footsteps. Dr. Ghostwolf has also appeared on NBC's Ancient Prophecies, NBC's Today Show, Fox's Strange Universe, the Discovery Channel, Public Broadcasting, UFO AZ, Art Bell's radio show, Coast to Coast, and The Cutting Edge in the past, and once again here tonight. Dr. Ghostwolf, thank you so much for appearing on the show tonight. We're
Good to be here, Jim.
Tickled pink to have you.
Pink.
Okay, it's our pleasure. So, what may we ask led you into this subject tonight?
Well, I got a lot of pressure from people writing to your show.
Okay.
Saying, well, what did you know about Hollow Earth? What did you know about Hollow Earth? So I said, okay, Jim, I'll put something together on Hollow Earth. You know, it's not that exciting. It's like not mysterious. It's all true.
Okay. Okay. Plus a few of very tantalizing slides you brought with you on a past show, I think really.
Yeah, we can do some shows to show how I fell into the Hollow Earth.
That must have been a fun fall.
Yeah.
Did you fall far?
No, I wound up here in Tucson.
You know, it seems like there are legends from every continent and every culture on the planet about people living below the surface. Well, there's the movie The Lord of the Rings, and where that came from. There's the famous Kincaid caverns in the Grand Canyon.
Isis temples.
Yeah. There's been all kinds of caverns and tunnel systems all over North and South America, going all the way across South America, I know. And in this country, I'm not too familiar with some of the tunnel systems, the ancient tunnel systems here, but I understand there's quite a network of them. So there's been a lot of subterranean activity, I guess, right? With humans.
Yeah, it's a never-ending, ageless myth. And these tunnels, according to some of the theosophical teachings, have existed for thousands of years, by which the masters, during the flood time and various cataclysms that we had before that, would travel from one location to another location, from Egypt to Glastonbury, from Glastonbury over to here. The Hopi claim that they have moved through tunnels from where they are in Arizona and moved up as far as BC, Canada, and different places up there. And then we're told about networks of tunnels that go from Bolivia all the way up, all throughout the Rocky Mountains. Everything's honeycombed. They go east along the Ohio Rivers area as far east as Tennessee.
Amazing.
And Kentucky, North Carolina, all along the Blue Ridge Mountains. My concentration thus far has been in the western part of the country.
So these are, you're referring to ancient tunnel systems, though, aren't you? Or are you referring to both ancient and modern?
No, they're ancient.
Okay.
They're very ancient. And in some incidents, we find that the government became aware of them and incorporated them for their own purposes. And they have used them for storage facilities, for underground experimentation. There's a network up by Area 51. And over in New Mexico, there's thousands of miles of these tunnels that come all the way from Taos all the way down to Deming.
Does that have anything to do with the Taos Hum
My grandma thought so.
Okay.
Now you, I understand, have been led into some of these underground tunnels and caverns and so forth by Hopi elders and other Indians, I imagine.
Yes.
And you have seen ancient artifacts, Celtic, probably Celtic style, but maybe pre-Celtic swords.
Yes.
And these would, with
I've done a few shows here where I brought
Yeah.
the artifacts and images of the artifacts just to show people where.
and this would conventionally be thought of as European.
Yeah, the Europeans like to claim everything. My amazement is like, who were the first Americans? and you know, I mean, the deeper I go, the more I have to keep changing my original conclusions and hypotheses. You know, it's like, well, you know, this is rather British. You know, and I'd look at rock drawings and artifacts and bring them back and send them over to England and send them to the University of London via Sir Lawrence Gardner, and he would have them checked out. He goes, so where did you get these? I thought I knew about all the locations here. And I'd say, well, it's not there, Lawrence. It's in Colorado, or it's in Utah, or it's in. He'd go, oh my.
Oh, my.
The thick does plotting. And so, yeah, we have gone back thousands and thousands of years here with many, many cultures living in the Americas and sharing their cultural knowledge, if we want to put it that way, with people who were here. It's so cross-mingled that I no longer can tell you who the first Americans were, except that I think they spoke with a bit of a brogue.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
Fascinating, very, very interesting.
Are they Irish? That's my.
The Irish drank their way over here.
I understand. I understand they found Roman coins
Yeah, Roman coins.
in different places.
Roman statuary with Romans with beards and gold coins, silver coins, Roman artifacts, buckles that they would use on tartans.
Yeah.
And they were found in South America. So.
I know
Yeah.
in the book Forbidden Archaeology, there's an account of a fellow in Indiana drilling a water well with a steam engine and a rig, a drilling rig. And he was down at about 110 feet, and he saw these round things coming up in the slag.
Yeah.
And he looked at them, and they were ancient coins. I mean, from a civilization that goes back so far beyond who knows, you know. So people have been living beneath the surface. There's another account I read about in a coal mine in Oklahoma in the same book, Forbidden Archaeology, where they were a half a mile or a mile down. It was way the heck down there, you know. And they're drilling below the surface, and they run into a masonry wall.
Yeah.
So people have been living below the surface. This is nothing new, and probably for good reasons.
Probably for some very good reasons, including historical accountings that have now been documented about nuclear holocaust that happened in previous global wars, because that stuff doesn't go away that readily, and the traces of it can be detected very easily by forensic science today. We also, you know, this is where we really stretch the element of myth. It's like, okay, Alice, let's go through the looking glass and let's touch what's mythology, what's legend, and what's fact.
Yeah.
What I can say, and part of why we're here tonight, is all the legends are true, most of them.
Yeah.
Sounds like something Maverick would say. And there's more to the story than people think. And what I've emphasized my work on is what's in North and South America. There's enough people over in Egypt. It's like, do you have to get a ticket while you wait online to go?
Crawling on top
It's your,
of one.
hey,
Sure.
Dr. Jones, it's your turn to
Yeah.
come to the next pyramid, okay?
Yeah.
It's a little crowded over there,
Very
and
crowded.
what has happened is they have written off the incredible history that is here, right here in the U.S. I mean, right here in Arizona, right by Wilcox, Arizona, where a good friend of mine resides. The area is surrounded by ancient legends
Yep.
that deal with the very subject we're talking about tonight.
Mhm.
And so we're here to take myth into reality.
And you have a slideshow with you, do you not?
We have a few slides that we
Okay.
could go through,
Okay.
which I guess we'll go to the slideshow now.
Yep, that one. Have you
Okay, so we've
Okay.
been here before on this show,
Mhm.
and we have talked about the work that I'm doing as an archaeologist.
I can see this here.
And here we are excavating some of the caves up in the Four Corners areas, where I found many giants buried under ceremonial circumstance in spiral tombs.
This is solid rock, right? Is it not? It's spiral cut?
Well, yeah, it's solid rock, but there are places where it is patinaed. Okay, it's actually been, it's like when you dig down through them, it's layers of sand, clay, wood, rock. Sand, clay, wood, rock, okay? These are spiral tombs, and what happens is they're narrow at the bottom. So if you understand anything about monatomic particles and how electromagnetic elements work in this kind of a situation, what happens is you have this strange phenomenon that we call walking lightning, okay, which sort of crawls across the grass, and you can almost hear it sometimes crackling. Or when lightning itself hits the ground, okay, it'll send a charge. The charge will then hit these spirals, and they'll move around in a spiral direction, going down and going faster and faster and faster as they hit the bottom, and then it's boom, they go right back up. So what we're dealing with is a tetrahedral force. It literally creates a tetrahedral force. So as below, so above. You know. So for those who don't know what tetrahedron might be, we're talking about what most people are familiar with as the Star of David. But it creates this energized.
So what you're describing then is how these were constructed, or?
How they were constructed.
Okay.
In other
So
words,
it
there
was-
was a purpose
Yeah.
for this design. And the other thing is that in almost every one of the mummies, we found a form of metal that is it's not from here. It doesn't apply to the physics, it doesn't ground to earth. But the elements that are in it are elements that you would find here that we call rare earth, things that would create things such as monatomic gold, iridium, platinum. So that would, and they were buried in the mummy in the heart, where the heart would be. The heart's been taken out and these stones have been put in there. So when you first come across things, you can come up with a lot of, wow, what was that for? But we believe that what it was for is the electrical force would move down, it would go into the mummy, and there would be a sort of communication. So if you thought you were flying over in the ship and you were looking for your ancestors who were here a couple of thousand years ago, you'd simply send down a beam. And the beam would turn down to where they were, it would go down into the spiral tomb, it would come in, it would activate this stone, which is about the size of a walnut usually, and it looks like a meteorite kind of quality to it.
Hard material.
And then it would, boom, it would send back a signal. Okay? Also, it's very likely that these things sort of became luminescent in the dark because of this. They had, and with the limestone wash, that's on the sandstone and the bentonite clay, you literally created a hyperconductor, which was capable of transmitting what they call superlight, which is used in the production of white powder gold.
Would that be anything like the Shekinah light that shone forth from the Ark of the Covenant?
Similar.
Similar?
Similar. Not amplified like the Ark of the Covenant.
I see. Fascinating. Okay.
And then we found some pretty big people down in those places. This is a little lady we call Linda. She's 9 feet tall. She's appeared on a couple of magazine covers. And she's buried at the bottom of one of these spiral tombs. You can sort of see a little bit of a ring down in the lower left-hand corner.
Do you have any idea of the age of these, like, for
We
instance?
haven't done forensics on these
Okay.
because the elders who brought me there they weren't favorable to that.
Okay.
They said, take photographs, do what you have to do,
Right.
but don't touch the beings.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Not of respect.
Yes. This is a male, he's 12 feet tall. And we can sort of see here that what we have is they're very large cranials, which would indicate to me that these are hybrids. We have a site now up in Canada, British Columbia. Remember, we found these from Guatemala, Bolivia, New Mexico, Illinois, Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Oregon, and up into Washington State, up to BC, where they are, the ones in BC we're going to be able to do forensic testing with.
Oh.
So we should come up with some pretty interesting things.
Interesting.
But these are all on Native American land, particularly Hopi land. I know the Four Corners.
No, they're
kind
not. They're not on Native American land. They're all on private land.
Oh. Okay.
They're all on private land. But the elders knew where they were. I mean, just because Farmer
okay.
Jones now has his farm or his ranch over here doesn't mean that for 3,000 years it didn't belong to the Kiowa, you know.
I understand.
And the Kiowa still know why it was called sacred land. You know, so, but this is how we got to explore these underground tunnels and systems and try to turn myth into reality. There's an entranceway to one of these tunnels. I went down into this tunnel about 300 feet. What we see in the lower left-hand section is an air hole, breathe hole. These places would be honeycombed with these breathe holes that would go from opening to opening up to the surface to get oxygen down into the inner chambers of the
Fascinating.
of the subterranean structures. So that tunnel leads to this,
Wow.
which you would not expect to see here in North America.
No.
Left me with a lot of questions. You can see in the architecture that they're using the arch. They have a full knowledge of the arch. If you look a little closer into some of the corners in between the arches, you'll see that they had buttresses made out of stone, so they knew joint and
Geometric design, architecture.
Well, they had engineering and carpentry involved in how they were
Sure.
locking these things together and holding them up and supporting them. And as you can see, they're quite elaborate.
Yes.
So
Very
this is, you know,
elaborate.
and obviously this is not a corp of nature. It wasn't some weird thing that happened.
No, I don't think
You
so.
know, of course, some people would go into a place like this today and probably find all sorts of depleted uranium in containers marked U.S. Army. But this is another one that's also from the Four Corners area. And you can see there, this is like a small village under
Yes.
the ground. The difference between this and going to a site, a Mayan site like Chichen Itza or Palenque, okay, or Uxmal, is that I would walk around those and they were not where people lived. I mean, there was no kitchen, there was no toilet, there was no place for creature comfort.
Just
And I went-
ceremonial places.
Yeah, and 15 years ago, this is like to come up and say, well, you know, Humboldt's, people didn't live here. What do you mean people didn't live here? And it was, there's no place for the kids to play, okay? And he just look and they wouldn't know how to answer. There's no place for a kitchen, so how do they eat, okay? And realizing that what these sites were universities, but you didn't see where people lived, okay? Now, I have seen temples under the ground. These are places where people lived.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that's
okay.
what's amazing
So
to me.
these are not ceremonial necessarily.
These are not ceremonial.
They have a
This is-
special energy to them.
Yeah, and they had their reasons for being under there. And it all goes back to our first awareness in Western culture of all this came from maps that were drawn during the 16th century. This one is by a man named Mercator. He was a cartographer for the Vatican. And on this map, you see that there's a lot of navigational lines and information, longitude and latitude, what it's like, the different areas are very detailed as to the type of vegetation, what the terrain was like, what kind of animals they had, and where they would have settlements and not settlements. So it was quite involved, okay?
So we're looking at the North Pole right now. That
And we're
center
looking at the
point.
North Pole right now.
Okay.
And what we call the magic donut.
And did you say that these maps were notated in Latin? Or
Yeah, it's all Latin.
all notated in Latin? Okay.
Yeah, because they were done for the church.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So the church has known about this stuff for a long time.
Yes.
Long, long time.
Well, it almost looks like you'd have to get off the planet to get that kind of a view.
Yeah. It almost looks like
Good
you'd have
point,
to get
Beverly.
off the planet.
It does look like it to me.
Or have a very good guy with a ruler who really knew,
Really good ruler.
You know,
really long.
yeah,
big
long ruler,
lot
and
long.
knew
Yeah,
exactly where to
there.
put these things.
Yeah.
And he had to travel to all these different places
Yes.
to tell you what all the terrain was like. And so as you can see, we could go right from,
All right.
well, in the lower right-hand corner.
Wiggle
That's-
it around real fast, it'll come up. There it comes.
There it is.
Okay, what we have here is the Danes in Northern Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And then we come over here to Greenland, Iceland, and a place called Friesland.
Friesland, yes.
Okay, and Friesland has disappeared, which is one of the reasons why this map was said to be a fantasy map. But I have photos that we couldn't get down this time to put on the slideshow
Mm-hmm.
of NASA photos of land masses just underneath the surface of the water, which are exactly where some of these
Mhm.
islands were. And we had a cataclysm, we had a flood, and we had major earthquakes,
Mhm.
which could cause land to sink,
Much like a lot of other stuff that is underwater today,
much like
too.
a lot of other
Right.
stuff that's
Yeah.
underwater
Yeah.
today.
Mhm.
So what would happen is you could come from the Danes and the Vikings, could travel through here and do trade through Greenland, Iceland, Friesland, come up through the corridor and go to China in 3 weeks. Or they could come in and go through North America and go through the St. Lawrence River, enter the Great Lakes, and the Great Lakes go to the Mississippi, from the Mississippi go to the Ohio, go to the Missouri, so on and so forth. And they had trade routes that were established for a long, long time. And again, we come up to this mysterious center donut, which is really interesting. And it gets more interesting because, it's the other way. This leads us to the mythical land of Agartha, the
Okay.
hollow earth, the land of the smoky suns, which has been spoken about by metaphysicians and mystics for centuries.
Yeah.
There are teachings about it in the Theosophical Society. Helen Blavatsky wrote about it and spoke about it. Edgar Cayce, Krishnamurti, they've all spoken about it. We've had tales and legends of the inner earth in India with Krishna and all these things that would happen, and the gods would go in and out. Really, really, you know, it's been with us as long as we've had civilization. As long as we have civilization, this myth has followed us.
So who do the myths say lived there?
Various people. They have
But you're
various
talking about humans, extraterrestrials,
human forms.
interdimensionals, all kinds of different.
Well, you know, it's layered. It's like looking at a Oreo cookie, you know?
Okay.
There's different layers to the Oreo cookie. And farther back, they had a clearer understanding than we have now. Because farther back, they knew when they talk about these people, you know, the Arcadians or the Nephilim or the what, and they used these terms and had various names for the different races that they interacted with in the inner earth. They knew who they were talking about, whether it was an alien or whether it was a hybrid or whether it was a Nephilim or an Anunnaki. They had a very clear reference to it. And then everything got very fuzzy. Okay,
Yeah.
things got very fuzzy, and they stole all the information. And then we said that the Arabs stole it and said we were going to go to Jerusalem, we were going to have the Crusades and get the information back. And then we went down there, and then they said that we stole it. And so then we took it, and then the Pope said that the Templars had it, and the Templars said that no, the Pope has it, and then they said no, none of us have it, the Illuminati stole it. So it was running all around all this information that goes back to something that was probably very well known, and scholars at the time were very familiar with it. The priesthood definitely was familiar with it when we had the libraries of Alexander. And most of the libraries of Alexandria had all this information all compositized inside their chambers. But after that was burned and carried out so that they could
What a crime.
you know,
That
crime.
is
And
travesty.
and you know, and while it was burning and all that stuff was going on, Caesar was loading the boats with the information and taking it to Rome. So there's been a lot of drama around this myth for many, many, many centuries, great centuries. And in 1929, Admiral Byrd took off on a flight. Many people have heard about Admiral Byrd going to the North Pole. Now, he wasn't going there specifically to look for the Hollow Earth. He was hired by the U.S. Navy. Yes, sir, I'm going to go do an expedition, tell you how far it is, and can we do trade routes, and can we fly over the North Pole, and I will put a lighthouse down there, don't worry about it, okay? So the U.S. Navy was there, and Russian explorers were looking for it at the same time. But Byrd won the race. At least that's the way they have it in the Navy archives. And along the way, he traveled much farther than his plane could have possibly flown with the fuel that he had in a lot less time than they figured it should have taken him. There were points along the ship where he disappeared, didn't show up at certain stations, way stations where he would have refueled or done things. And then he came back with these stories about these people who he had met up in the Hollow Earth. And of course he was considered to be a little bit loony, and maybe something happened up there in the plane, maybe some strange force hit him, he ran out of oxygen, he got brain damage because these things don't exist. Eventually what happened is he tried to come out with his information. He was silenced by the government.
You mean they'd really do that to someone?
What a shock.
It's the illegal aliens coming over the border. They do it. The government's just trying to take things away. Now, the strange thing is that what we see in this little animation is that we have, this is a compilation of NASA images from the Apollo flights that show a hollow Earth with an opening toward the top. And then as we go through each one of these frames, they take us into that opening, that doorway. The elders call it the doorway. And the elders in Japan, the elders in Norway, the elders amongst the Aleut Indians up in Alaska, they're all aware of it. And they're aware of the beings that come here. And the legends that surround this even go as far as the Lakota and the Kiowa, talking about the earth and the place where the buffalo came from and where the buffalo will go. And there are other legends in the Mayans about this is where Shak went. Shak was the god of storms, the god of water, who happened to be an elephant god. So the legends of this hollow earth are now even being verified by NASA itself.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll actually get Edgar Mitchell to talk for real. Now this is an image that was drawn in 1920, and it was based on Mercator's map again of the North Pole and the hollow earth. Really interesting. And what's more interesting is that when we come to 1968, that's an Apollo NASA photograph of the North Pole. So we're seeing that photos can tell 1,000 words, and what brings us back to the reality and substance behind Mercator's maps.
Isn't it true that there's usually some kind of a cloud cover over that area, that opening in the North Pole, and that's why it's not seen more often?
There's usually a cloud cover because from the temperate area you would have steam rising up.
Sure.
Okay, and then you have the infusion of warm air, cold air circulating, sort of like you had in Tucson today. We're driving to the studio this afternoon. It was like I felt like I was up in the Pacific Northwest, and I kept saying to Jim, "Tell me when we reach Portland," you know. because everything was covered by a fog. The whole place is covered by a fog. So yeah, you would see
Wow.
that, and it's the same thing that you would see in the desert in the morning, especially with this crops or with this sage, plants that hold a lot of water. In the mornings you see this fog and this mist. It's not air pollution, it's the water vapor going up.
Right.
So that is why it's been so mysterious. You know, and again, here's some NASA photos where we can see up in the top area of the Earth that we have something that is a swirling of clouds, a swirling of things around a spout that seems to go downward. Here is an enhanced infrared section of that section showing in the center that it is, in fact, a temperate area. So Bird was correct. I've flown over a very temperate and green, warm area. I'm looking down into it. I tend to see structures and animals.
Is that, before you change it, is that kind of hole, that odd-shaped hole, is that the opening, or is that just...
It's a temperature difference, right? No?
Oh, is that what that
yeah,
is?
The center of it is the opening here.
Oh, that's the opening, though. Okay, I was just
This
checking.
is another Apollo shot where you can see the opening up in the
Right,
northern
up
portion
there at the top,
quite
okay.
clearly.
So it's not completely round.
Well, it's not round.
Okay, just checking. I just trying to make it clear.
Yeah. This is an enhanced photo. It's not Mars. Where they put
thought
it
it was
through a
Mars.
filter, and it shows, again, the temperature infusions. Where you see the white is the water vapor, ice crystals, or water vapor, like around the equator. And we see at the top, we have the opening. And then as we're looking at it, we look to the left, and what we have is cloud formation. So we can see the difference between this opening and a hole in the clouds, a hole in the ozone.
Sure, yeah, it's a big difference.
And again, there's another angle of it. And it's just the way Mercator described it in his maps.
Seems to be a weather generator as well.
Very possibly. Here's a close-up of that hole. And remember when we were looking at the animation, we saw possible signs of structure. And again, as we look at this still, and it's kind of hard to clean up some of the Apollo images.
Yeah. Can we bring that up, that close-up?
But we can see what definitely looks like potential structure in there, engineered
Right.
forms. So Admiral Byrd started something, and the search goes on for proving the myth of Agartha. And some of the work that I've done with the tunnels and following footsteps along the ancient Spanish trails is exactly about the migrations from the south up through the west, and how North and South America were connected, how they got developed, and who were the bonny lads who came over and taught them about their calendar system and when to have their holidays and when to plant their food and how they should do it, and they should follow the moon and it should be this way. And as you look at it, you realize that we have been a multicultural trading place, country, for a long time.
Yeah.
And that civilization goes back a lot longer than they ever told us in seminary school.
You know, it seems yeah, you're right, there's an endless accounting of humans, Homo sapiens, living below the surface of this planet, here, there, and everywhere around the planet. And it makes me wonder that probably they had to, because even mainstream science agrees right now that we are on the verge of a magnetic polar shift. In fact, my daughter's fiance, he's a jet captain. He flies a commercial jet all around the place, and he was telling me the FAA has came out with what they call NOTAMs, notices to airmen. In other words, notices to pilots about certain runway headings. Like all the runway headings are based on a magnetic heading. So if you're lined up for a final approach for runway, let's say 25, your compass will say 250. And now these things are changing. Now some of them are 5, 10, or 14 degrees off now. And even mainstream science on PBS came out with a very interesting show called The Coming Great Magnetic Storm. And they agree that just before the poles begin to shift, at first they weaken and they start fluctuating. And then they're lost and they're gone until an indefinite period of time when they reestablish themselves. But during that period of time, when the poles haven't reestablished themselves, we don't have a protective magnetosphere around the planet. So our genetics can get damaged from all this cosmic radiation, subatomic particles slamming into our genetics, and it's just not nice to be out there. And it doesn't matter if it's daytime or nighttime, the stuff is continuously coming in, and that wonderful magnetosphere we have protects us. And that's why humans aren't really ready to travel in space, because there's no protection for that right now. There's no technology for it right now.
No,
But
there would be nothing to protect us from the
Yeah.
ravages
Yeah.
of these violent fluctuations of the magnetic forces that would then cause chaos, literally like hurricane winds, and the electrical components and,
Sure.
and elements of life here. And what we are is electromagnetic component. We're a transducer transmitter. So this lends credence to where we for 3 days go into darkness. Maybe 3 days of darkness means unconsciousness. And we go into unconsciousness, and then we wake up in this other place, because it's very feasible that when the electromagnetic fields reach 0 point, well, what happens? It's like going around and screwing around with the computer, your computer, and the magnet in the computer. You'll erase everything that's on the hard drive. So there'll be nothing left on the hard drive. This may be what they mean when we go into this other age, and it may erase everything on our hard drive, okay? Which is why the elders from, and it's too many nations. You're talking Hopi, Tibetan, Siberian, Inuit, Mayan, Incas, Australian, Dogon. There's too many cultures and too many lands that have the same fable going toward the same place and the same occurrence in the 3 days of darkness and this blank spot, which you know, and that was all myth. That was fun. But science has come in now, and through the age of the computer, we can go out and we can test the magnetic realities and positions and flow through various ages.
Yes.
So we can see that, well, the north was actually 23 degrees more this way in this time period, but then it shifted violently, 16 degrees during this time period, and you can see all this. You know, one of the places that I saw them do incredible work with that was around old campfires.
Yes.
Trying to find out where Lewis and Clark traveled. And they were analyzing the old campfires because the charcoal locked in the magnetic elements of that time period. So all they had to do was go back and test other elements for that time period, and they were locked into it. So it's become like a digitalized library that they can use now.
Are we, when we're talking about this magnetic shift, or whatever kind of a shift it is,
We're right on the edge of it right now.
so are we talking about the, let's say the 2012 prophecies, you know, of this this time period of getting either it have been done by then, or getting through it by then, or I know it doesn't start then, but just what kind of time period are we looking at?
You're already engaged in it.
Okay.
It's already ongoing. The shifts in the planet, the planes, how they navigate the planes, how they navigate the ships, like Jim was referring to, okay, they can no longer rely on instruments that they relied on even 10 years ago. They have to rely on various fixed points upon the Earth based upon the angle of a satellite, which is orbiting in a fixed position based upon what they have. With the things are shifting, the electric magnetic poles are shifting, and they're shifting very fast.
Oh, I know.
They're shifting very fast.
Yes.
And like one day it's over here, next day it's over there, next day it's wobbling. Okay. We're seeing climatic changes as a result of that. I mean, we're seeing winter in May, folks. I mean, you know, it's 8 inches of snow in Denver this May 31st, and you're like, wow. So we're seeing all this. We're seeing climates come in, and like the Hopi prophecies used to say, you'll see it snow in the summer. You'll see the birds migrate at the wrong time of the year. The crops will come up and then they'll die. And what they lead us to is, and the rivers will go backwards. When the rivers go backwards, you'll know you're very close to the end time. Well, what would cause water to flow and change its direction? Except a violent shift in the magnetic polarity of the Earth. I mean,
Wow.
Fascinating.
You know, I've been interested in doing reverse speech now for several years, and
it's fun, but nobody can understand you when you talk.
well, I know it's very hard. It's really tough. But I usually spend about 3 hours a day, you know, listening. I love to record all different people, like on the internet or on radio or TV, and listen to their speech backwards. And I can tell you, the collective or subconscious knows about this, because everybody speaks about it in reverse. Everybody.
Speaks about what?
About this huge
Shift.
coming. And I've heard a lot of, you know, it always has to do with spring, March. March. Now, is it March next year? They never say March of 2006, 2007, but it's always March. So I don't know what March is going to be, but something big is going to happen in March, because I've probably heard 30 or 40 different people in their collective unconscious talking about
a March.
No, not a March, a time frame. March, spring.
Well, it's May now.
I'm not talking about this year. I'm just
Okay.
saying sometime. Something big is going to happen in some spring coming up. That's all I know.
If we look at the
In
ancient,
other words, that'd be the time to look for it.
Yeah.
if we try to understand the 4 seasons through a medicine wheel, and the winter is when things are born. Winter solstice is May 21st. I mean December 21st.
December, yeah.
21st, 22nd. So it will happen in 2012 that a new dream will be born. Because it's the time of the buffalo, it's the time of the dream, it's a time of creating the newness, because you're indoors, you're no longer outdoors, you don't have to hunt, you don't have to gather. This is where it came from. And we sit around and we tell stories, we exchange knowledge, we have ceremony, we do all these things indoors, okay? We're inside the sweat lodge, we're inside the kiva, we're inside the longhouse, we're inside the pyramid. And then we go into spring. Spring is when those thoughts that you collect, you know, and I suppose it's a lot more understandable if you're an artist of any kind, because you go through these periods. It's like the winter times when I write.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, in the summertime I want to go out and climb mountains and go into caves and ride horses and get on 4-wheel drive Jeeps, you know, and go, let's go, you know. But in the wintertime it's like you can't do it. It's too much mud, there's too much rain, it's too cold. So you're in, that's when I let my creativity out. And then what happens is I now empty myself. I come into the spring and I'm being called into a different kind of energy. And so you want to go out, and you want to start walking, and you want to do it. The newness is being, the baby, the fetus of the dreams that you had during that wintertime, awakened sleep. Awakened sleep, the alpha sleep, okay, can be utilized to produce your potential reality that you go out in the spring. And in the spring you go through trial and test, and this works, and that stays with you. And then you find out sometime by midsummer what it is that you've held on to, right? And then we go into the fall, which is the season of the bear. It's the season of introspection and contemplation. Because you take that which you've done from the spring and the summer, and you now internalize it all, and you evaluate how far you've progressed. So if we go on that, the spring would be the birth of something new.
Oh, yeah.
And that would come in March.
Yes.
But it would be born on December 21st,
Right.
2012.
Whether it's 2012 or sooner, I'm not sure.
Well,
That's going to be the...
One thing for sure, the Middle Earth people, to use a term loosely, must have had a lot of time for reflection like that.
well, they had clear minds.
Yeah.
They didn't have to worry about whether the news they were hearing was real or not real, and you know, it's the media trying to spin what I'm saying. You know, but that of the once and future king shall once again be upon the land, and that which was will be, and that which is will no longer be, and men will awaken from the dream.
Fascinating.
Yes, no, I think
That's if
that-
you believe Celtic things.
Well, again, in the reverse speech, everybody talks about a new earth and that all will be uplifted. Everybody. It's amazing. I hear this over and over, even if they have
Even the seeds
no
beneath the
idea
ground
what they're
will
talking
come
about.
to rise on that day of the Lord.
I think we need a new paradigm. It seems that
I'm ready. Let's bring
it
it
seems
on.
that all of our entertainment, even for children, is based on violence. Video games, blood splashing up on the screen. This is entertainment. This is sick. What's wrong with this picture, folks? I mean, we need to make some adjustments here, I think.
Well, I'm going to give my age away, but when I was a kid, the biggest thing we could go out and do is get Hopalong Cassidy stuff, you know.
Me too.
And you know, here's,
Bill
hey,
Boyd.
wow, I got a Hopalong Cassidy hat and a pair of Hopalong Cassidy boots and a pair of silver guns to wear, and we had the little Hopalong
I had a
Cassidy
Hopalong
things,
Cassidy
Hopalong
pistol
Cassidy
holster.
glasses, remember? You know, if you drank your milk and you drank that, you had that. And now it's like, hello, kids. Mattel now brings you the gods of war.
Yeah. That's what they feed on, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
and
true.
they have like these games that kids can play and get on the internet, and they can go and they can take a village in the Middle East and fight terrorists on TV, and it's like, you know, it's
And
frightening.
then when they're sent over there,
Yeah, it's
In-
time.
in-
It's,
in
it's
war.
time for some adjustments. Our whole paradigm seems to
Well,
evolve
and
or
also,
evolve around
I
violence.
think we've played everything out, haven't we? I mean, everything's a rerun.
Yeah.
We're now in the great age of reruns.
reruns.
We went from the Renaissance to reruns, you know.
Uh,
So, you know, it's time, you know, everything's screaming for a change.
Yeah.
I would love to see a new paradigm where man wouldn't learn war anymore. Period. To a point where it would become forgotten in the past, forever.
That would be.
Then-
I really think that's where we're going, though. I think that's
hope
what's
so.
happening. I really do. I hear this over and over, really, and people talk about spirits being uplifted, the new earth. It's going to be a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
I mean, and this is all from the collective, let's say, subconscious, which I think with reverse speech, you're dealing with a higher level, because it's just, to me, it's amazing. I wish everybody would get into reverse speech. I really think everything would change very quickly, because you can't lie. You can't lie. You know what everybody's really saying.
David Oates did. He got a little bit controversial for some people, but
Oh yeah,
I
well,
thought
he got
was doing
kicked out
a
of the
good job.
country because, you know, what would it be like if we knew everybody who was lying? Oh my gosh. But that's what I like to do.
Well, there's another thing that goes on that's interesting as reverse speech. If you go into some of these ancient temples or places and sit there, and you bring a tape recorder, an ordinary tape recorder, and you just let it run. You come back and you'll play that, and sometimes you hear things.
Fascinating.
And there
Yeah.
are filters now that they can put on the tape and bring the words out. So we may even find that some of the messages that we got, we actually did get.
Yeah, from the
That's
past.
called electronic voice phenomenon.
I could just imagine, you know, in the hollow or living below the surface, and a typical day, father might say to the oldest boy, hey, run up to the surface and see if everything is still dead or if anything's coming back to life yet, you know. And maybe it was really like that.
Yeah, but what happens if the child comes back and says, there's no sign of any life forms, Father?
We'll stay down longer.
No intelligent life up there yet.
Well, they're still looking for it today on the surface, aren't they?
Yeah, that's true.
So what we're getting now, you know, as you're coming into this age, what I'm seeing is that myth is becoming reality. We're starting to understand the importance of metaphysics. We're starting to understand the importance of not literally destroying every ancient site that we come across, because there's usually something more than meets the eye that's there. And when you come across these ancient places where things are buried, you know, you should try to get a hold of people who are some knowledge about it. You know, and I don't really care what way you do. I mean, you know, if you're smart, you'll call me or somebody like me. You know, if you're a little bit more risk-taking, you'll call the government. No, you'll never see it again, okay?
Yeah, right.
That's all I'm going to say about that subject. But just like all the stuff that Kincaid had. I mean, I remember photos that came from those magazines, that newspaper, there's the Arizona Republic, I
Yes.
believe.
Yep.
And I saw hundreds of artifacts laid out right on the ground. And then all of a sudden one day I went back to the newspaper and they no longer had those photos. And I said, well, how come they disappeared? I mean, things happen like that all the time these days, you know. I mean, the information right here that we've looked at tonight shows us that myth does become reality, and this Middle Earth, Lord of the Rings maybe, perhaps, actually did exist. Because we have the evidence that something happened way back then.
Yeah.
And what kind of technology could build these tunnels hundreds of feet, miles into the earth and across the whole earth?
And they also had a technology of glazing over the surface of the walls, is that correct?
Yes, when you look at the walls, they very often have a patina to them, as if they've been polished.
Amazing. Yeah. Could we do just a few announcements before we get too far? And whatever time we get left, we'll get back on target here, okay? Future shows on the cutting edge are next is Dr. Steve Canada. He's going to be discussing crop circles and how they connect to Bible codes. So that's going to be
That should be very
fascinating.
interesting, yeah.
And Dr. Louis Turry is going to be here talking about and demonstrating Kabbalistic healing. After Dr. Turry, Ann Druffel, the writer of the book Firestorm, will be here with regard to Professor James McDonald, who allegedly committed suicide.
Right.
He was associated with the University of Arizona quite some time ago. And she wrote a very cohesive book, fascinating book, very detailed. And after Ann Druffel, Dr. Tom Van Flandern, we have a taped interview with him with some mind-blowing images, really wonderful stuff from the planet Mars. And after Dr. Tom Van Flandern, the Dean of Ufology.
Oh, great. It'll
Bob
be
Dean.
so nice to see Bob again.
Can't wait to see Bob again.
Yes.
So the $64 question, are we all going to wind up below the surface again?
I still want to know who the lost basketball team is that where I found the 12-foot giants. No, you know,
man,
I'm not going to speculate on that. But
that's a tough one to speculate on. You know, how
you know,
things
are
all
we
gonna
going to have
come
to?
Yeah.
It's very possible with the way things are going, unless we get a handle on things.
Yeah.
Unless we get a handle on our own responsibility of interacting with the earth, and we realize how important the environment is, and not wait until it becomes an economic crisis before we do anything about it, because at that point there may not be any time to do anything about it. We have to realize this is 2005.
Yep.
It also could be 2010
Yep.
if the calendars are off. So the clock's ticking.
And even mainstream science. This is not woo-woo, folks. Even mainstream science agrees that we are right there. We're right on the edge of the beginning of this shift. It's actually starting to occur. And when the poles are lost, we have no more magnetosphere, no more protection for our bodies, our genetics.
Well, if we know that it's happening with nature, and that we're a critical mass, why wouldn't it happen to us? Do we think we're immune?
I know. Why should we?
You say, oh, well, that's not happening to us. It's happening to some palm tree. What do I care about bloody whales? Okay. Monkeys and primates and butterflies that turn color in the air. Okay. But, like, you know, have you been slipping with your memory lately? Are you have moments of unaccounted time loss? Have you been looking for things that you put down that you've been putting down in the same place for years and they're not there? Have you noticed strange personality shifts in your mate?
Or do you get up and go look for something and forget what you were looking for before you get there?
Yeah, and suddenly find yourself doing
I
something
already do
completely
that.
else. Yeah.
Senior moments. I think it's-
Oh,
So,
darn.
you know, we're seeing it. We're seeing birds fly at the wrong time of the year.
Yeah, we had pelicans landing in Phoenix last year. They're
Pelicans
supposed to go to
landing in
Florida.
Phoenix.
Wow.
Yeah, those poor pelicans.
In the desert.
And we probably don't hear a lot of these anomalies of nature. You know, I bet you there's a lot that we just don't hear about, and it's just not
No,
written
everybody's
about.
confused. That's why we have people coming across the Mexican border looking for Baghdad.
Hey, I think we're down to about a minute. Robert, I want to thank you so much for coming.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
This is totally fascinating.
Yeah, it
this
is.
will,
Yeah,
you know,
it's good to have
undoubtedly
you
at some point in time become a reality for mankind.
Oh, get your digging outfits on and pack your little bags, a little pick, head under.
We can
Talk about
relearn
down
how to
under.
make those drawings again on the wall.
Learn how to do real undercover work.
Yeah, literally.
Oh, that's pretty.
Want to thank our crew, Jesse Kaiser in the control room. Kyle Dayton is nursing a back injury right now, and if she's tuned in, hello, Kyle. George Parks, our floor manager, and camera number 3 operator, Joe Seymour, on camera number 1, and everybody involved in the production. Without your help, this cannot occur, folks, so thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You should tell them about your website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
www.cuttingedgetelevision, all spelled out, cuttingedgetelevision.com. Thank you.